Hey YouTube, this is The Art of Prepping. Thanks for joining me today. I just wanted to comment on some questions that I've been getting. I've gotten a lot of the same question over the last day and a half or so, and I just thought maybe I'd just do a response video instead of trying to answer them individually. And so basically the question is, what's causing this decline in America? Um, I think that there's a lot of things that are in effect right now, a lot of things that have culminated to a point that it is breaching the well-being of the nation. And this breach consists of a multitude of factors coming at us from all different directions. It's the slow creep of socialism. It's the more and more further left liberal ideology. It's the breakdown of our families, our communities. It's the tax burden. It's the poisons in our air, in our water, and in our food that's actually sanctioned by our government. It's the very poor education that we receive, even in a private schools. It's a lot of times not as good as you think it is. I, for one, went to private schools for the majority of my schooling in my life, besides college, and I can tell you that there is a very big disparity between the two. Not that it's always that much better though in a private school, but man, it just depends on where you go, and depends on who your teachers are. But what's causing this is a breakdown of morals and a breakdown in society. And so you have more and more dependency on the government, which lends to less and less ability for individuals to be more self-sufficient. And there's a lot of other things too. There's a lot of agendas by individuals, especially the global banksters, the central banks in particular, to take the sovereignty of nations and blend them together and create a one world government. And they already have the World Bank. They have the United Nations that is always trying to chip away at the sovereignty of other nations, especially the United States. And so what are we going to do about this? Well, we have to take care of ourselves first and our family. And we have to educate those that we love and care about of what the truth really is. There's so many lies, especially if you turn the media on, radio or TV or whatever, even print media. It's just full of lies. Very few real stories, very few, unbiased types of reporting going on these days. And so how do you get truth? You have to be very critical about how you get truth these days and where you get it from. But I can tell you, though, that the mainstream media is definitely on the take. And if you look at who they're owned by, it's no big surprise. Large corporations, very large international corporations, some of which have their home base here in America, are the owners of these news conglomerates. And so it's no surprise that their agenda spews out into these multimedia organizations. We have to be mindful, though, is how to counter that. And first of all, we need to be aware of some of their propaganda, but not to spend all of our waking hours trying to keep up with a bunch of their made-up stories and their agendas for false flags and to manipulate the peace of mind of the citizenry. So what you have to do is be aware of some of it, but you got to live your life, and you also have to push out all of this negative, these lies and contortions, of the facts. So, you have Hillary, which is a blatant poster child, if you will, for the left wing, the mainstream media, the globalists. They would love for her to get in, and most likely she probably will. But with Donald Trump, though, he's such a big bag of mixed up feelings, for a lot of people. It's hard to know what direction he's going, who's pushing and pulling him, if he's a puppet or if he's just has a certain pathology that drives him in a very unique way, hopefully for the betterment of everyone. But as you can see, what drove him as a businessman and continues to drive him as a businessman is results. results, regardless of what the cost is, even if the law allows it, but it's not good for you, he's still willing to do it. And so there's some things to be concerned about, you know. By no means am I saying that all of his decisions were wrong, and by no means am I saying that Trump is worse than Hillary. But I don't know. I just know what I do know, and it's not good on either side. And so it's a real big mess this year. You know, getting people into this particular position, even though people say it is the most powerful position in the world, it probably is on some degree. But we got to remember, though, there's other different levels of safeguard, like Congress, for example. At least it's supposed to be. And, of course, the Supreme Court. And we have the safeguards with the state governments and local governments. But with that being said, it really is a very demeaning thing to see someone like our president not represent us or mislead us or drive us to more disparity. And so that's why it's important to have someone that represents our country actually with a more pure sight of what we stand for. And so that when we're represented with other countries, when we're having meetings or other different types of situations, it's good to actually have a president that we would really want to be president and not just go through the motions. And so I'm just getting tired, as everyone, about politics in general. And is it like something that we have to have? I guess so, on some degree, but there's so many lies. And it's just, I can actually understand why people just tune out and they never come back, because it never ends. The lies never end. And I mean, who wants to be part of these big circus of lies? And not me, you know, not anymore. You know, we only live for so long, you know, and how many hours of our life do you really want to reflect on and say, man, I spent this much time keeping up with this circus, which I really consider more like a nightmare than a circus. But, you know, and so many things are so out of our control. And when we look at it and we see how much we have, you know, in terms of saying power, or how much control we actually can dictate, it's just so little, you know, in the system that we currently have. Now, if we actually stood up and united, which I don't see that happening, because Obama's doing a great job on breaking up the unity of the country. But if we ever did come together, we could fight this. But that's the question, if we ever did. And we're not right now, because we're so much fighting each other over stupid crap. And a lot of race baiting is still going on. It continues. And it's not even that anymore. It's starting to move away from like whites against blacks or blacks against whites or whatever this supposedly the agenda was at the beginning. And now it's just like people against the police, or more specifically blacks against police. And I mean, really? So I guess that's going to evolve too over the next few months, and we'll see where that leads to. But it's always something crazy and stupid and people uneducated. And I tell you what, the best thing you can do is to just be educated on the real facts, get away from these large population centers, and pretty much simplify your life the best you can and reduce the clutter and drama. And if that means not keeping up with some of this, I can kind of understand that. This stuff is just, it gets old. You know, even for me, I'm just about ready to tune out, you know. And I mean, I'm a really open-minded guy that really wants to keep up with some of this, but I'm just about done. You know, it's all theater, you know, just like wars are just theaters to the most part, you know, and most wars, you know, are just a means of a distraction. And the same thing we're starting to see with this this political theater, and it's just getting extremely old. I mean, we don't hear specifics almost on anything. It's all just jibber jabber, generic talk, and I think American people are really ready for a very strong, hardcore leader, someone that comes in there and just cleans house and gets things done. Not the way that we're looking at like Donald Trump, that would use unconstitutional means and any legal means, even if it would hurt the American people. because we do know there's a lot of unjust and unconstitutional laws on the book right now. And that's beyond the gun control stuff and beyond abortion and stuff. There's a lot of stuff that's pretty sick that's out there, even on a state level. And for us to say that that would be okay just because it's legal, that is not moral and it's not good for the American people, especially their future. Just for the fact of all these abortions going on, and that's supposed to help us. How? We're killing our own future generations. Oh yeah, that's a great way to run our government and our country and run families and communities. Yeah, by killing our own. This is a sick ass shit going on. And anyway, any country and people that kill their own and do things that destroy their future's generations, and not only their life, but debt ratios and all kinds of shit going on, are a doomed society. And that's what we are. It's a slow creep of socialism that's taking over, and that's causing the slow decline over and over and over. It may take many more years before we completely collapse, but we will at this point. There's almost no way to really turn this around, potentially. I'm sure there are some plans out there from people who have figured this out, but it's probably so far from being realistic because there's so many different ploys to counter that. And so no one wants to be accountable on a large government scale. And people just want to keep on kicking the can down the road. And the country is in shambles. And you don't need me to tell you about this. In fact, I wasn't even going to make this video. I'm so sick and tired of this stuff. But I'm just talking out loud just to get it off of my mind, so at least I can say I talked about it. And I got it out there the best I could, because I talk about this to my friends until I'm blue in the face, and half of them understand, half of them don't really care. And so it's a lot of times I care so much more than the average person. At least it seems like that. And that's probably one of the most frustrating things that people just take for granted. All this freedom and liberty, at least what we have left. It's not like it's all that. It's still there. To some degree, at least compared to other countries. Not all countries, but a vast majority of countries have gotten even that much more tyrannical. But just to have governments, though, to be so controlling over their people, it just shows you that there is no trust. The social contract, at least here in the United States, have been broken. And because of that, the lawlessness, continues. And it continues to breed more lawlessness. And you don't have to look very far, to see. And it's even more of a sham when you see one of our political candidates, a complete criminal. Through and through. Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton is a complete criminal. It's undeniable. FBI says she is. It's just on and on. And we have a criminal, a known criminal with, a whole laundry list of crimes, has a very good chance and most likely could be the next president. That's where our country has come down to, the breakdown of society and family. And that has the doings because there's no foundation, no morals, no right and wrong. No one cares. Everybody's doing things for the short term, regardless of the cost to the future. And so that will destroy our country, and it is. So we don't have much time left, relatively speaking. It's just not. And so you can debate this all you want, but the facts are laid out in front of us. The decline is everywhere, not just in our economy. It's in our morale. It's on our businesses. If the few businesses are still around, it's just an amazing thing that's happening right now. This generation right now is witnessing the collapse of one of the greatest nations in the world and all through time. How much more sad and pathetic that is. This nation could have been so great, and it was for quite a while. And I'm not trying to echo something that Trump said, and I want to make this nation great again. Or it was very great, but you have to admit it really isn't so great right now. Now, I guess it depends on who you compare it to, what country and everything, but it's great in a lot of ways still if you look at it that way. It's just that at its fullness, it was so much more greater, and there was so much more life in this country. And I think that there's a lot of things that has to do with the breakdown of society. And we talked about many of them And you almost wonder about how multimedia and even the internet, as wonderful as it can be, it can also be used as a tool to use a fight against liberty and to introduce a lot of ideologies that break down, societies. And it's just a really hard thing to talk about sometimes because you want to be neutral on a lot of subjects. At least I do, because there's no reason to pick sides on things that I don't feel like very passionate about. But at the same time, it's like the time before all this technology, it was simpler. And yes, we were more ignorant. But are we really that much more smart, though? Are we that much more aware? I just don't think so. I think that we're so disconnected from reality and that we're using technology as the escape vessel, the means to get away from reality, instead of actually creating and realizing more of what the reality is. And so that's kind of how I've been viewing it, that technology in general, while there's a lot of good applications, and it can always be used for good for the most part from what I see, it's just not being used for good because people are choosing not to exploit those resources for the good of all. It's just the good for a few. And this is where the tyranny comes in for our nation. The nation really needs to be, like, I guess you could say figuratively speaking, or some people would say even literally speaking, needs an exorcist to exorcise out all the tyrannical, all these people, these insiders, especially those who weren't even elected to positions that were just put into power. It is mind-blowing how that's even allowed in a democratic republic. How you can just be appointed to positions sometimes for your entire life. It's just, and you're never even voted in there, Just like, for example, the chief justices of the Supreme Court. So many state and even city positions can be a very long tenure, if not indefinite. It's just shocking that that's allowed. You wouldn't think that would be in the best interest of anybody. Even like, why isn't there term limits on various members of Congress? You just kind of would think after a while that would not be in the best interest to have the same person over and over and over 10 times. Isn't that a little bit obvious that there could be some abuse there? Not saying that those people are abusing their power, but it sure lends to a power grab. And so I'm going to jump off here, but it's a beautiful day where I live, and the cooler, fall weather has come in, and last night it got into the 40s, and it was just wonderful. And so everyone enjoy the fall. All the indicators of the reports coming in shows that it's going to be a pretty cool and long, cool fall season in most of America. And there are some indications, though, that it could be a fairly cold winter this year. So you might want to prepare a little extra for that, whatever that may mean. If you have a wood stove, you may want to have a little more extra wood. Or if you power your home with natural gas tanks or propane tanks, you may want to make sure you top off before winter. But hey, everyone be safe. Have a great fall. I'll catch you guys probably on the next video, which might be Thursday. And we'll have some, maybe a survival quick tip or so. Thanks for watching.